Hi, everybody. It's Michelle Hill, your legacy builder at Winning Proof, and I'm here with another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is George Caspar, and as usual, I am going to read his bio before we dive into the questions. George Caspar is an attorney specializing in criminal defense, litigation management, legal bill auditing, electronic discovery, legal research and writing, and public speaking. His sensitivity to colleagues makes his quiet leadership style inviting, not to mention his dry wit and clever humor. People gravitate to George because they know they will find fresh approaches and new ideas that are both sensible and respectful. George can take a fragment of an idea and write a blog, paragraph, article, or book. He consistently finds new angles and ways to express different elements of topics. So welcome, George. Thank you for being a guest on Winning Proof Unscripted.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Okay, so my first question is digging into the backstory of what caused you, what made you become an attorney. Were you an argumentative child?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think I became an attorney because my father was an attorney, and I had graduated college in 1993 with a psychology degree, and the job market was pretty tough at that time. And so I needed to figure out something more specialized to do. So.
Okay, and what kind of attorney was your father?
He started out as a trial attorney with a they're called White Shoe firm in New York City, and then he went to work for various corporations and was in the executive level at that point.
Okay, that's awesome. So my first question really, besides that, because sometimes people say, you know, they just love to argue and win arguments as a child, and that's what their parents thought, oh my gosh, this kid's going to be an attorney. But I just want to ask, how has electronic discovery helped in convicting offenders? Because that's, to me, I had to look that up and say, what is electronic discovery? I kind of thought I knew what it was, but how has that helped in convicting offenders?
Okay, the short and long answer is it has not.
Okay.
Electronic discovery is used in mainly corporate litigation, where there's lots and lots of millions of documents that need to be reviewed for content and attorney-client privilege. So in criminal cases, and I just want to clarify, my main gig is with an insurance company. I started doing criminal law on the side because I wanted to have more face-to-face interactions with clients. So you may have been misled a little bit on my bio, but that's understandable. So, okay, so to answer your question, electronic discovery and criminal cases don't really meet anywhere because criminal cases don't involve millions of documents. Sometimes they do, like white-collar criminals, perhaps, but that's not what I'm doing.
Okay, that makes sense. And me not knowing a whole lot about law and the different areas, it just like, oh, I really like that term. But I understand how it could not, maybe not work into what you do. So again, another area of your legal expertise in your services is legal bill auditing. So can you share some examples of legal bill auditing and how it can benefit an individual or a company?
Okay, it's probably not going to benefit an individual. I work for an insurance company, and insurance companies get claims, and sometimes the claims are disputed, and so that results in litigation. And so the insurance company I work for is a international company, but has a very large presence in North America. And so we hire local counsel in all the jurisdictions of North America, or well, the United States, I guess, where litigation happens. So it's pretty much every state. It is every state, but some states more than others. And so the law firms that we hire submit their bills to us, and part of my job is making sure that our litigation costs are kept reasonable. And one of the ways we do that is we review the bills that the law firms submit to make sure that they're in line with our billing guidelines. And sometimes there's some unexpected things thrown in the bills that we'd want to look into more to see whether it was reasonable or not.
Okay, who goes back to, if it's not reasonable, and if it's obviously over billing or shady billing that you discover while doing an audit, who goes after the person? Does the firm you work for do that, or do they hire an outside firm? How does that work?
Okay, so I work for an insurance company in litigation management. So it's my group is the one that oversees all this, and we hire the law firms and oversee them for quality. And so it would be someone on my team would look at the bill, and if there was something questionable, we would just cut it off their bill, delete it from their bill, and then pay them the reduced price, and they're free to appeal any reductions we made, but that's how it works.
Okay. So the litigation management, is there anything exciting, or what excites you about litigation management?
Well, it can be kind of interesting, because behind every lawsuit, there's a story. Somebody had a loss of some kind, and they submitted their loss to the insurance company, and then the insurance company has to decide whether the loss is covered by the insurance policy that the person originally purchased. And so there's like a contract interpretation thing there, but also a lot of our insureds are insured by multiple insurance companies. And so there's a lot of discussion about like who's responsible for what. So litigation can result in that area as well. So it's kind of interesting. I find these legal arguments interesting in that ultimately there's a story, there's a person or a company at some point that their roof caved in, or someone was walking out in front of their store and slipped and fell on ice and sued them, that sort of thing. So there's a story behind every claim. So I would say that's the interesting thing. But the uninteresting thing from my perspective is that I'm always several steps removed from an actual person with an actual problem that needs legal help, which is part of the reason why I wanted to do criminal law on the side, because then I am face to face with somebody with an actual problem that I can potentially help. So.
Yeah, and that's true. And what is criminal law your favorite part of practicing law? Do you have a favorite part of practicing law?
Well, yeah, I mean, as much as litigation management pays the bills, criminal law is more interesting in that I'm in the room. I'm seeing how the criminal law system works. I'm visiting clients in prison, lots of stuff that I wouldn't otherwise be exposed to. Most people wouldn't be exposed to. And these are real people with real problems. And some of them are caught up in the system. If you're part of the lower socioeconomic level, you don't have a lot of resources. You're trying to make ends meet. So let's say the only way you know how to make ends meet is through criminal or near criminal means, so you're kind of stuck in this situation. And then once you get arrested and charged and you're in the system, then it's really hard to get out of the system, because there's fees and probation and lots of things that are, and if you violate the probation, then you can be charged with something else. And if you don't pay a fee, then more fees get tacked on. And so which is not to say that I think our criminal law system is necessarily a bad system. And certainly compared to other countries, it's one of the best. And there's a lot of intellectual history and legal history and jurisprudence that has gone into it. So it's a very, it amazes me that it all works, really. So it's fascinating, and the fact that there are people with actual stakes at stake who are involved in it makes it that much more interesting to me.
Yes, and how have you had to defend somebody who you knew was guilty, and as your job to prove they're not? How does that work? Because I know that's a question in a lot of people's minds when it comes to criminal defense. So how does that work for you?
Yeah, so a lot of people not involved in criminal law have that question.
Yeah.
And so first of all, in our country, our Constitution requires the government to prove its case against anyone charged with a crime. So the burden of proof is on the government, not the defendant. So my job as a criminal attorney, yes, it's trying to help people navigate the system and get the best outcome for them. But our system assumes that defendants will be given a zealous defense in order to make the government prove its case. That we wouldn't want to live in a society where you could just be accused of a crime and locked up without it being proven, without evidence being shown. And so criminal defense attorneys serve, in my mind, a very important role in helping our system work.
Yeah, because I know I was almost going to do a book with someone who had spent 30 plus years behind bars and was unlawfully charged, and the forensic person falsified information, and that sent this person to jail, to prison for 30 plus years. And then finally they were, I guess the word is exonerated, and he got out. But
Yeah.
that does that happen? I know that happens with a lot of African American men, but does that happen just in general with people? Is there a high percentage of people who go to prison with false evidence, against them?
I don't have access to specific numbers on that, so I don't know. But my sense is that that's very rare, and the reason it's rare is because there are a lot of zealous defense attorneys out there. But also it's rare because a lot of most cases, in most criminal cases, the defendant pleads to a lower charge
Yeah.
before, so that it doesn't actually go to trial in that case.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So I have to turn it to the fun side and ask, what are your favorite law shows that you like to watch, and how realistic are they?
I used to really like Law and Order,
Okay.
but Law and Order gives the illusion that things happen very quickly in the criminal law system. You commit the crime and the next day you're arraigned, and the next day there's a trial. No, there's months and months in between each step.
Yeah. Okay. Are you a Perry Mason fan?
I haven't really seen all that. I mean, I remember it being on when I was a kid, but I didn't really watch it. I love the show Better Call Saul. Have you ever seen that?
Nope. Never heard of that one.
Okay. Have you heard of Breaking Bad?
Yes.
Okay. So Saul Goodman was an attorney, one of the characters in Breaking Bad, and there was a spin-off show made, but it's brilliant. It's every bit as good as Breaking Bad was, in my opinion.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. You know what? Thank you for sharing that. I love Perry Mason because it's just from the old days, and that it's just so classic. But okay.
Yeah, I remember it being on like Saturday mornings when
Yes.
like old Superman was on, and before the cartoons started.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So to turn a quick corner and break away from law and go into just a snippet of Toastmasters. I have to tell everybody, George is a fellow member of Apex Toastmasters. And so we're fellow members of that Toastmasters group. And he's our current elected president. And he is also a DTM, which is a distinguished Toastmaster. And so I have to ask you, why did you originally join Toastmasters, and how has it benefited you in your law practice?
Okay. So when I joined Toastmasters, I was working from home. I had previously worked in corporate office, like cubicle offices. That was my experience. And I really didn't like that at all. I didn't like the experience of people looking over my shoulder, and like the cubicles are made so that you can't see somebody behind you, but they can see you. They're designed so that your privacy is violated without your knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's an aside. So I started working from home, and I really liked that because I really didn't fit into office culture all that well.
Yeah.
But the downside to working from home is you're at home all the time. You need to get out. And so I was really looking forward, I was really looking for some means of getting out of my house and interacting with people.
Yep.
And I'm kind of a shy person, or at least I was. And so the thought of public speaking, there was some fear there, but it was also very exciting. There's another part of me that likes to entertain people. I love making people laugh and getting reactions out of people. So I really liked that, but at the same time, there was some fear and shyness that I needed to work through. And it turned out that Toastmasters was just a great way to do that. It provided me a weekly opportunity to stand up in front of people, and I love being creative too. So speech writing interested me, and so all the preparation that goes into a speech, all the creativity, then can be put to the test in front of people And when I first started doing Toastmasters, when I anticipated having to give a speech, I would experience this well of anxious energy that it was sort of like a column in my abdomen and my chest, and it was like, I would be shaking, my hands would sweat, but at the same time, it was very, very exhilarating. And then after I gave a speech, and especially if it went well, then there was this tremendous release that would happen. And it was really cathartic.
Yes.
And I sort of got addicted to that, like, ramp up of energy and then release. I wanted to keep experiencing that over and over and over again. And after experiencing that over and over again, that fear of public speaking started to slowly lessen and eventually kind of disappeared entirely. So then there was sort of like I kind of missed that exhilaration ramp up that I used to experience. But I also appreciated that, I had faced this fear, and through facing fear, you get to the other side, and then there's new adventures on the other side of that wall that was previously there. So it's a continuous experience, but also in facing that fear of public speaking, I was actually also facing other fears and psychological issues and hangups or whatever that were inside of me. And so not only did I lose the fear of public speaking, or gained the courage to speak publicly, but I also cleared out a lot of other blocks, psychological blocks or spiritual blocks that were hanging out inside of me all these years. So I can't say enough good about Toastmasters. In my experience, it's just been it's an invaluable experience, and that's why I want to play my role in the leadership, because I want to make sure that this is available for other people who might need it.
Yeah, and I think your most memorable speech for me was that when you came up chomping on a chip, a potato chip or a tortilla chip or something, because that just made a point, and your creativity that you bring is very unique, and that just caught everybody's attention. And that's the part that I remember, is that you came up, and I don't know even what the speech was about. Maybe it was about of the things that irritate us about.
I think it was, yeah. I don't fully remember that speech either.
But I remember the chips, and that's what made it memorable, was you don't see anybody doing that. And that's what I really liked about that one. So so first, okay, let me back up. How long did it take you to become a DTM?
That's a good question. I think I started in 2016 and then got my DTM in 2020, I believe. So about 4 to 5 years, something like that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I know that is a huge accomplishment, and it takes time, and it takes a whole lot of speeches. And do you pay attention? Because I know I have since, and I'm a newbie, but do you pay attention to when other people talk, and their so's and their buts and their uhs and their ums?
Yeah, I'm not a good person to ask that, because I certainly say all the time, and a lot, and prolifically. But the thing with those filler words is that they're more noticeable with certain people than they are with other people. Certain people, and I think I'm one of them, can weave them into their talking such that it's not all that distracting or that's my sense, and that's what I've been told in the past.
Okay.
Other people, it becomes distracting, and it takes the audience out of the speech. So I think when it becomes distracting in that way, then it's definitely something to address. If you can, I'd like to think that if you can use filler words, and it's not distracting, then it's not so much of a problem.
Yeah, and I heard a speech, or I watched a speech, a TED Talk by Amy Cuddy, which is one of the most famous TED Talks ever. And being a Toastmaster now, it was like she said, all throughout her speech, but she got her message across.
Did you find it distracting?
Being a Toastmaster, I did, because that's what we're trained. That's what we get, dinged on in every meeting, is that count, the odd counter. So I did, just being aware, more hyper aware of it, but it didn't detract from her overall speech. She had a great message, and that's why it's so famous. But being a Toastmaster, it made me like, oh my gosh, I started, wow.
Yes, but see, I don't know that it's all that useful to be hyper focused on it, because
Yes.
you said she gave her speech and she got her message out.
Yes.
That's the important thing.
Yes.
So the fact that you became hyper focused on it because of your Toastmasters experience, I think, I don't know, I question the value of that.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because I think that's what in Toastmasters, I think you become, since we have the odd counter, you just become kind of hyper vigilant, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're hearing other people talk on the radio or whatever venue on a podcast, and it makes you kind of that way. And maybe not everybody, maybe it just makes me that way. But some of the most famous speeches that I have listened to, they're the uhs and the ums are incorporated into it, and they aren't distracting whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a general practice, it's good to be aware of that and to try to curb it. And it can be very distracting with certain people, but not with everyone. I think the most important thing is to just clearly relay your message in an entertaining, hopefully entertaining way.
Yeah, and it's in the message, and sometimes, and I means are part of the message itself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I have a love-hate relationship with the odd counter. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So how has that practiced, and I'm coming in for a landing here, how has that helped Toastmasters, and being a DTM and all your experience, all these several years, helped you in practicing law?
Oh, well, if you have a fear of communicating with other people, if you experience that anxiety ramp up anytime you're going to be speaking in front of a few people, that's kind of a problem, because as exhilarating as it may be when it happens, there's fear there. And so we tend to usually avoid what we fear.
Yeah.
So you might not put yourself in that situation as often as you otherwise would have.
Yeah.
Because there's like a subconscious or conscious fear there. And so then you're limiting yourself, you're limiting your opportunities to meet other people and to make connections and to put yourself on display.
Yeah.
So definitely getting over that fear has broadened my world. And I don't think I would have I don't think I would have stepped into the criminal law world had it not been for Toastmasters, because I'm already fully employed, so it's not like I need extra work, but I see value in getting out of my house and interacting with other people. And,
Yes.
opportunities result from that. So,
Yes. Okay.
And-
That's great, because I think no matter what your career is, I think that you can take the skills that you learn in Toastmasters and transfer it to whatever you do.
mhm.
You can work at Taco Bell, I guess, and it's all about communication. And I think that's a key thing that we learn in Toastmasters, is how to effectively communicate and clearly communicate.
Yep.
Yeah.
And how that happens is you first get over the fear of communicating,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because even if you can effectively communicate to the people that you're comfortable with, if you're with people that you're not comfortable with, or just because you don't know them, let's say, or there's a lot of them, that fear is going to be it's going to be interrupting your flow. And it does give you exhilaration in that sense. It sort of heightens things and makes you sharper, but it also makes you a little bit more scattered and more prone to forget your main point, let's say, or some side point or whatever. So all I'm saying is getting over that fear helps you communicate more effectively, I think.
Yeah, it sure does. It sure does. So I'm going to go full circle now. And who is your perfect client? If somebody has a need, out there and they want to come to you and have you, represent them in whatever way they need, who's your perfect client?
So my criminal practice is small, and I just kind of started, but I am working with somebody who's more experienced than me, so I'm sort of learning as I go. But because I'm kind of new to it, traffic cases and misdemeanors are really what I'm focused on at this point.
Okay. That's awesome.
So no murder.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. And I think that, I tried to do this unscripted. I have a list of questions, obviously, that I kind of use as a guide, but do you want to tell anybody about your book? You have written a book. Do you want to mention that? Here, you can say yes or no.
Well, I will mention that I've written one, but I haven't gotten anywhere with the publishing at this point.
Can you tell us what it's about?
It's a novel, and it's about, well, the main character has a job in an office, which I can relate to, works in a cubicle. And he's good at what he does, but he sort of feels trapped by life. And so the story very generally is just about how he faces that fear of being stuck and gets through it. But it's obviously way more complicated than that. But
Okay. Well, I can't wait to read it.
it's obvious to me.
Read it published, I'll buy a copy.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. If people want to get in touch with you, if they have a traffic case and they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
My phone number is 860-986-1213.
Okay, can you repeat that?
That's 860-986-1213. And I'm practicing in North Carolina, so
Great.
not taking cases from other states, just North
Okay.
Carolina.
Okay. Any final words of wisdom that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah. So Joseph Campbell, I'm a big fan of Joseph Campbell. He wrote A Hero with a Thousand Faces, and he did a lot to articulate the hero's journey, which we see often in certainly in movies, but in books and all sorts of things in life. So the hero's journey essentially is about living in a comfortable, ordinary world, and then being called to perform some test that takes you out of that comfortable, ordinary world. And so you're facing a fear and then growing from facing the fear. So this ties into Toastmasters. It ties into really anything. Joseph Campbell has a quote that says, "The cave that you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek." And I think that's really true.
Wow.
If there's something out there that you fear doing, you could probably profit by facing that fear and seeing what's on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Yeah.
I think it's by Susan Jeffers.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. And you think when you conquer one fear and feel like you're on the other side of it. Now, I think you always, it's always a challenge, but once you really kind of conquer it in your mind and in your heart, it translates to so many other areas. Like if I can do this, I can do that. If I can do A, I can do, B, C, and D. So It gives you the confidence that you need in every other area of your life.
It's like you're stuck in a confined space. And the fear is keeping you in there. And then when you face that fear, you emerge into a larger world. And there'll be other fears there, but every time you face your fear, you're making your world bigger. You're liberating yourself from a smaller, encapsulated world.
Yes, yes. And I'm one that I've always said, I don't want to be in a rocking chair when I'm 90, rocking back and forth going, woulda, shoulda, coulda. Why was I so afraid? I'm not going to be that one, but a lot of people are trapped by that. They're afraid to step out of that and they never conquer their fears and they stay in that little tiny confined space. And I think how sad that is.
And after a while, you kind of don't even recognize it as a fear anymore. It just feels like the normal state. But you also feel very stuck.
Yes.
Which is not a good feeling.
Yes.
But it's safe to stay in your stuckness.
Yes, I think that's where what keeps a lot of people is just they stay safe in their stuckness, and then it becomes a crutch, and then it's like inviting somebody in to live in your house. It's just comfortable now, and you feed them. You feed the fear.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you, George. I really appreciate you being a guest today and sharing your world of law and Toastmasters. And, I've just really I'm glad that you're and I know the elected president.
As opposed to
corrected me on that. And I'm not going to forget it. So I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it too.
Thank you. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me, I'm Michelle Hill, your legacy builder at Winning Proof. If you have a book idea, you can come to me and we will figure it out. I put all the pieces together so you don't have to. And you can find me on winningproof.com and winningproof@gmail.com. And I'm on all the social media sites, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So thank you. And thank you for watching another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted.